yourself, God says the struggle is over. It's time to step into rest. Not tomorrow, next year now. Because rest is not a season you wait for. Rest is a position you step into when you realize who holds your life together. Rest is not laziness. Rest is not doing nothing. Rest is not weakness. Rest is strength under control, peace in the middle of storms, and confidence in the one who called you. When you step into rest, you detach from the constant need to fight for what God has already settled. You stop negotiating with people for your worth. You stop pleading for validation. You stop struggling to carry weights that were never assigned to you. Struggle thrives where there is attachment to outcomes, people, and opinions. But when you detach, when you decide that your peace is more valuable than their approval, you break the cycle. Detachment is not rejection of love. It is freedom from bondage. It is saying, I am not defined by what left me, by who rejected me, or by what I lost. It is knowing that if God allowed something to be removed, it was never meant to anchor you. Hear this: struggle is the fruit of misplaced identity. Rest is the fruit of divine confidence. When you no longer tie your joy to circumstances, you enter the rest that cannot be shaken. A woman who steps into rest is no longer reactive, no longer desperate, no longer moved by every opinion or rejection. She is unshaken because her rest is rooted in the unmovable God. Rest is not passive. It is warfare at the highest level. Because when you rest, you silence the enemy. When you rest, you declare, I will not be tossed around anymore. When you rest, you place your entire being in the hands of God, saying, if He said it, it is done. If He promised it, it will come. Woman, the struggle is over. You've carried burdens that weren't yours. You've fought for things that were beneath you. You've wept over doors that God already shut. Now, detach from what drained you and step into what sustains you. Your greatest power is not in how hard you fight, but in how deeply you trust. Rest is not escape. It is entrance into a higher dimension of living. And once you step into rest, you will see no weapon formed against you prospers, not because you outfought it, but because you outrested it. Rest is victory without striving. Rest is dominion without struggle. Rest is heaven's announcement that your war has ended and your new chapter has begun. Rest is not inactivity. It is alignment with God's design and timing. Many people misunderstand rest and think it means sitting back, doing nothing or abandoning responsibility. But true rest is not about absence of movement. It is about presence of order. When your life is in harmony with God's timing, your soul enters a rhythm that no storm can disrupt. Rest means you are no longer striving in your own strength to make things happen, but you are allowing God's hand to open doors, close doors, and direct your steps. In this place of alignment, even your labor is peaceful because you know you are moving in sync with divine purpose. When a woman lives out of alignment, everything feels like a struggle. She pushes against closed doors. She tries to hold on to relationships God already ended. She fights to prove her value in places that were never assigned to recognize her. That kind of life drains the spirit, exhausts the emotions, and burns out the body. But when she steps into alignment, she discovers that God's timing carries her farther than her striving ever could. Rest is not quitting, it is flowing. It is no longer forcing outcomes, but trusting outcomes to the one who already saw the end from the beginning. Rest is the position of faith in action. It declares, I don't need to manipulate, I don't need to control, I don't need to beg, I don't need to chase. It is the confidence of knowing that what is yours cannot be stolen, delayed, or denied when you are walking in God's timing. In rest, you find clarity. In rest, you find strength. In rest, you find the courage to let go of what is not for you, because You are certain that what is for you will arrive without struggle. Struggle ends when you detach your identity from battles and root it in purpose. Many people unknowingly define themselves by what they have survived, by the pain they carry, or by the wars they are constantly fighting. But identity was never meant to be forged in struggle. It was meant to be grounded in purpose. If you see yourself only as the woman who endured hardship, then every day you unconsciously search for another battle to prove who you are. This cycle keeps you in constant exhaustion because your value becomes tied to what you overcome rather than who you were created to be. When your identity is rooted in purpose, the need to constantly fight fades away. You no longer measure your worth by scars, rejections, or losses. You begin to see that those battles were only temporary classrooms, not permanent labels. Struggles may have shaped you, but they were never meant to define you. Purpose lifts you out of the battlefield and sets you on the path of destiny, where you no longer waste energy proving yourself in wars that don't matter. Detaching from battles does not mean you ignore challenges, but it means you stop making them the center of your identity. It means you no longer allow pain to tell your story. Instead, you begin to declare, I am not what I went through. I am who God designed me to be. Purpose stabilizes you when everything else is shaking. Purpose allows you to walk away from unnecessary fights because you understand not every confrontation deserves your energy. Once you anchor your identity in purpose, the struggle loses its grip. You are no longer enslaved by proving your strength through endless battles. You are free to live your strength through the fulfillment of why you were created. True strength is revealed not in striving, but in surrendering to the divine order. The world often teaches that strength is about pushing harder, fighting longer, and refusing to yield. Yet in the kingdom of God, strength looks very different. Real power is not shown in how long you can struggle, but in how quickly you can release your will to embrace God's. Striving keeps you locked in a cycle of endless effort, trying to control outcomes, people, and circumstances. But surrender brings peace because you realize that your life is not carried by your own hands, but by the one who never fails. Surrender is not weakness. It takes far more courage to let go than to cling, far more faith to trust than to force. When a woman learns to surrender, she steps into a dimension of strength that striving will never give her. Striving drains because it is rooted in fear. Fear of losing, fear of missing out, fear of being forgotten. Surrender restores because it is rooted in faith. Faith that God cannot forget. His timing is perfect. Faith that His plan is bigger than your limited vision. Every battle you insist on fighting in your own strength keeps you exhausted and distracted from your true purpose. But when you surrender, you release the weight of unnecessary wars and enter a posture of rest. In that place, you discover that strength is not about resisting God's process, but about aligning with it. Surrendered woman is unshakable because she is no longer fighting against divine order, she is flowing with it. The storms may rage, but her spirit is steady because she has embraced the truth that real strength is found in yielding to the one who already declared the end from the beginning. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It is mastery over what no longer defines you. Too often, people confuse detachment with a lack of care or love, but in reality, it is the highest form of emotional strength. It is the ability to stand in the middle of rejection, betrayal, or misunderstanding and still remain anchored in who you are. Detachment does not mean you stop feeling. It means your feelings no longer control your identity or dictate your destiny. It is knowing how to love deeply without being enslaved by the fear of losing, how to give without being consumed by the need to be repaid, and how to walk away without losing your sense of self. When a woman practices emotional detachment, she does not become hard, bitter, unapproachable. Instead, she becomes centered, balanced, and unshakable. She knows how to respond to life's shifts without allowing them to destabilize her core. Detachment is the wisdom to say, I am not defined by what happens to me. I am defined by what happens in me. It allows you to honor people while not depending on their approval. It allows you to experience pain without becoming pain. It allows you to let go of what no longer serves your growth while embracing what aligns with your purpose. The beauty of detachment is that it restores authority over your own spirit. You are no longer driven by desperation, manipulation, or fear. Instead, you operate from clarity and vision. Emotional detachment is a shield that guards your purpose, a discipline that keeps your heart free, and a sign that you trust God enough to release what is temporary in order to hold on to what is eternal. It is not rejection of love, it is elevation of wisdom. When a woman stops fighting for validation, she steps into divine rest. The constant need to prove yourself, to be seen, to be acknowledged, is one of the heaviest burdens a soul can carry. Validation seeking becomes a silent prison, keeping you locked in cycles of performance and comparison. You begin to measure your worth by the applause of others, and when the applause stops, you feel invisible. But the truth is, you were never created to be sustained by human approval. The moment you stop chasing it, you step into a rest that no one can take away. Validation from people is unstable because it is rooted in their moods, perceptions, and limitations. One day you may be praised, the next you may be criticized, and if your identity is tied to that, you will live like a wave tossed by the wind. But divine rest comes when you understand that your value was already established before you were born. God validated you when He called you His own. He affirmed you when He placed purpose inside of you. No human opinion can cancel what heaven has already decreed. A woman who no longer fights for validation walks differently. She speaks with authority, not arrogance. She loves freely, not fearfully. She builds without waiting for permission. She understands that silence from others is not rejection of her value. She rests because she knows she is already approved, already chosen, already significant. When you release the need to be seen by everyone, you are finally free to be used by God in ways that impact those who truly matter. The search for validation ends. What replaces it is an unshakable confidence that allows you to rest in who you are, not in what people say. Rest is the inheritance of those who trust God beyond what they can control. Trust is the bridge between human limitation and divine provision. As long as you are trying to manage every outcome, predict every detail, hold on to every piece, you will remain restless. But when you learn to release what is beyond you, you step into a rest that belongs only to those who know God is bigger than every unknown. Rest is not for the anxious mind that refuses to let go. It is for the surrendered heart that says, even if I don't see how, I know who holds it. Inheritance is not earned, it is received. Rest is not something you fight for, it is something you inherit when you place your life fully in God's hands. This rest does not mean challenges disappear, but it means your soul is unshaken in the midst of them. You may walk through valleys, but you do not panic because you are not walking alone. You may face storms, but you do not crumble because you know the one who commands the winds. Rest becomes your portion when you stop measuring God's faithfulness by your ability to understand His methods. A woman who trusts God beyond her control radiates peace that confuses the world. Others may wonder why she is not worried, why she is not anxious, why she is not desperate. But her secret is trust. She has shifted the burden off her shoulders and placed it where it belongs. She knows that God has never failed His word, and he will not begin with her. Rest is her inheritance because she has chosen to trust more than she fears. And in that trust, she discovers that what God has for her cannot be delayed, denied, or destroyed. Struggle drains, but rest empowers. Struggle depletes, but rest restores. Struggle is like carrying a weight that was never meant for you, slowly wearing down your spirit, your body, and your joy. It keeps you in a constant state of exhaustion, always reaching but never arriving, always fighting but never feeling fulfilled. The more you strive in your own strength, the more life slips away from you in fragments of stress, anxiety, and discouragement. Struggle robs you of clarity, it steals your peace, and it leaves you empty even when you appear strong to others. Rest, on the other hand, is the place where your strength is renewed. It is not simply lying down to recover. It is a divine empowerment that flows when you cease striving and lean into God's sufficiency. Rest restores what struggle has been draining. It replenishes vision. It revives passion. It renews faith. When you operate from rest, you don't move slower. You move with precision. You stop wasting energy on battles that don't belong to you. You invest your energy where purpose calls you. Rest multiplies your strength because it anchors you in a power greater than yourself. A woman who lives in rest walks with a calm authority. She does not exhaust herself proving, chasing, or competing. Instead, she draws from a source that never runs dry. In rest, she is empowered to do more with less effort because her actions are aligned with God's flow. Struggle makes life heavy, but rest makes life fruitful. Struggle drains your spirit, but rest refuels it with divine energy. The moment you choose rest, you discover a strength that struggle could never give you. The strength that comes from God breathing His life back into your soul. Rest is not external. It begins within the mind and spirit. You can sit still on the outside, yet still be in turmoil on the inside, rehearsing fears, replaying past mistakes, and worrying about tomorrow. True rest is not about changing your surroundings. It is about changing your inner posture. If your mind is restless, no environment will ever bring you peace. But if your spirit is anchored, even in the busiest season of life, you will carry calmness that cannot be shaken. Rest starts the moment you decide to release internal chaos and embrace divine order within. Rest is a choice before it is a condition. It is the decision to quiet the voices of fear, to silence the noise of comparison, and to refuse the pressure of performance. It is allowing your thoughts to align with the truth that God is in control. When your mind surrenders to that reality, your body follows, your emotions stabilize, and your life finds balance. Rest is not found in the absence of problems, but in the presence of peace inside your heart. When a woman learns to cultivate rest within, her entire atmosphere changes. She becomes a source of calm in chaotic environments. She carries serenity into stressful spaces. People may wonder how she remains composed when everything around her seems uncertain, but her secret is that her rest is rooted in her inner world, not in external circumstances. Rest within creates strength without. It gives you the wisdom to respond instead of react, to stand instead of collapse, and to trust instead of fear. Rest that begins in the mind and spirit is unshakable because it is not built on what happens around you, but on what God has already secured inside you. The greatest battles are not outside of you, but inside of you. And once they end, rest is established. Many people spend their lives wrestling with external enemies, circumstances, and obstacles. The fiercest war is often fought in the mind and heart. It is the battle against fear, insecurity, doubt, guilt, the haunting voices of the past. These inner wars shape how you see yourself, how you respond to others, and how you interpret what happens around you. Until you confront them, no victory outside would ever feel like victory inside. The truth is, outside world often mirrors the conflicts within. A restless spirit produces restless decisions. An anxious mind creates anxious outcomes. But when you win the battle within, peace flows into every area of your life. Rest is not found by defeating every external problem. It is found when you silence the internal storms that keep you from hearing God clearly. Once your inner battles are settled, even when life shakes, you remain steady because the war inside has already been won. When a woman learns to defeat her inner enemies, she becomes unshakable. She stops letting fear dictate her choices. She silences the lies that tell her she is not enough. She rejects the guilt that keeps her tied to the past. Her rest becomes evident not because life is perfect, but because her inner world is no longer in chaos. External battles may come, but they do not control her. She can stand in peace in the middle of storms because her victory was already secured within. The end of struggle is not when circumstances shift. It is when your heart and mind align with truth. And in that alignment, rest finally takes root. A woman who has mastered detachment lives unshaken because her rest is built on God, not people. People are unpredictable. Today they applaud, tomorrow they criticize. And if your peace is tied to their approval, your life will constantly rise and fall with their opinions. But when your foundation is God, you no longer depend on the instability of human validation to feel secure. Detachment is not about shutting people out. It is about refusing to let their actions determine your peace. It is choosing to build your rest on something eternal rather than something temporary. A detached woman loves freely, but is not enslaved by fear of rejection. She serves faithfully, but is not bound by the need to be recognized. She gives her best, but does not collapse when others fail to notice. Her confidence is unmovable because it is anchored in the unchanging nature of God. Detachment allows her to remain calm when others leave, stable when seasons shift, and confident when doors close. She has discovered the power of resting in God's unshakable presence rather than in the fragile opinions of people. Living unshaken does not mean life is without storms. It means storms no longer control her. She can walk away from toxic relationships without losing herself. She can endure disappointments without falling apart. She can face uncertainty without being consumed by fear. Her rest is not tied to who stays or who goes, but to the one who never leaves. Detachment gives her the freedom to move forward without bitterness, without desperation, and without compromise. She is unshaken because her spirit is grounded in God's truth. Her peace is sustained by His presence, and her rest is built on the rock that cannot be moved. Woman, hear this clearly. Rest is not a luxury. It is your inheritance. The struggle is over not because the world has changed, but because you have changed. You have shifted from striving to surrender, from fear to faith, from attachment to detachment. You no longer live for the applause of people. You live for the approval of God. And when your life is anchored in Him, nothing has the power to shake you. The greatest victory is not found in endless battles, but in unshakable peace. Rest is not weakness. It is strength perfected. It is purpose established. It is destiny secured. God is calling you to step out of the weight of unnecessary wars and into the freedom of His divine rest. This is your moment to live unburdened, unbroken, and unstoppable. Because when you rest in Him, you reign in life.